At 78, Barry Gibb finally tells the truth about John Lennon. Barry Gibb was born Barry Allen Crompton Gibb on September 1, 1946 in Douglas, Isle of Man. Raised in a working-class family, Barry's early life was marked by frequent relocations, moving first to Manchester, England, and later to Redcliffe, Queensland, Australia, where the foundations of his musical destiny would take shape. From a young age, Barry demonstrated an exceptional aptitude for songwriting and melody, often composing songs with his brothers Maurice and Robin, with whom he shared an almost psychic musical bond. As the frontman and principal songwriter of the Bee Gees, Barry Gibb became synonymous with innovation in pop music, especially during the 1970s disco era. His signature falsetto voice became a defining characteristic of the group's sound, and he was instrumental in crafting the Bee Gees' most iconic hits, including Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, Night Fever, and More Than a Woman. These songs not only dominated the charts, but became the heartbeat of a generation, capturing the rhythm and spirit of the era with unmatched finesse. Barry's songwriting genius extended beyond his work with the Bee Gees. He wrote and produced chart-topping hits for a variety of legendary artists including Barbra Streisand, Woman in Love, Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, Islands in the Stream, and Dionne Warwick, Heartbreaker. His versatility in genres from pop to soul to country cemented his reputation as one of the greatest songwriters in popular music history. Barry's role in the group was central not just as a lead vocalist with his signature vibrate and falsetto but also as the principal songwriter and arranger. His songwriting prowess became widely recognized, crafting emotionally resonant hits like To Love Somebody, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, and Words, all of which highlighted his ability to channel deep emotional truths into lyrics and melody. His high-pitched falsetto would later become the definitive voice of the disco era, propelling the Bee Gees into global superstardom during the late 1970s. The Bee Gees' contribution to the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack catapulted them to global superstardom, selling over 40 million copies and earning them a permanent place in music history. Barry's creative leadership was central to this triumph. With over 220 million records sold worldwide, the Bee Gees became one of the best-selling music artists of all time. Barry's influence wasn't just measured in sales, however. It was also seen in the countless artists he inspired and mentored across decades. He possessed an uncanny ability to craft timeless melodies, often written in a matter of hours and always infused with raw emotion and lyrical depth. He was also known for his fierce work ethic and passion for perfection, attributes that helped sustain the Bee Gees' relevance through multiple musical eras. Despite achieving immense fame, Barry Gibb's life has been touched by profound tragedy. The loss of his brothers Andy in 1988, Maurice in 2003, and Robin in 2012, left Barry as the last surviving Gibb brother. Their deaths deeply affected him, and he has spoken candidly about the sorrow of outliving the siblings with whom he created so much magic. Yet rather than retreat into silence, Barry has continued to perform and record music, carrying the torch of the Bee Gees' legacy with unwavering devotion. His 2016 solo album, In the Now, showcased a more introspective side of his artistry, revealing the emotional weight he carries as both a survivor and a storyteller. In interviews, he often reflects on the joy and pain of his journey, acknowledging the unique bond he shared with his brothers while continuing to honor them through his music. In recognition of his vast contributions to music, Barry Gibb has received numerous accolades and honors. He was appointed a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, in 2002 and was knighted in 2018 by Prince Charles for his services to music and charity, officially becoming Sir Barry Gibb. He is also a two-time inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once as a member of the Bee Gees and again as a songwriter. These honors, while prestigious, only begin to reflect the magnitude of Barry's cultural impact. His work continues to be celebrated by new generations with countless artists sampling, covering, or drawing inspiration from his songs. Barry Gibb's personal life has been marked by both romantic milestones and lasting family devotion. His first marriage was to Maureen Bates, a woman he met during the early years of his burgeoning music career. The couple wed on the 22nd of August 1966 when Barry was only 19 years old, an age at which he was still navigating the challenges of fame as a member of the Bee Gees alongside his brothers Robin and Maurice. Their marriage occurred during a transformative period in his life just before the Bee Gees would rise to international prominence. Although the union was entered into with hopeful intentions, the pressures of a rapidly evolving music career and personal differences led the couple to part ways. They lived together only for a brief time before deciding to separate, and the marriage was officially dissolved in July 1970 after nearly 4 years. Despite the short-lived nature of the relationship, it marked an important chapter in Gibb's early adulthood and personal growth. A new chapter in Barry Gibb's life began soon after his divorce when fate introduced him to the woman who would become his lifelong partner. While taping an episode of the BBC's iconic music show Top of the Pops in London, a popular stage for the biggest acts of the time, Barry met Linda Gray, a former Miss Edinburgh and a striking beauty with a calm and supportive presence. The connection between the two was immediate, and their relationship blossomed quickly. On the 1st of September 1970, which happened to be Barry's 24th birthday, the couple married in a private ceremony that marked the beginning of a deep and enduring bond. Unlike his first marriage, Barry and Linda's union proved to be a stable and loving relationship that has stood the test of time for over 5 decades. Together, Barry and Linda Gibb have raised a large family, becoming the proud parents of 5 children. Among them is their eldest son, Stephen Gibb, born in 1973, who followed in his father's footsteps by pursuing a career in music. Stephen is a talented guitarist and has performed with various rock and metal bands, including Black Label Society. Barry's other children, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra, have each made their own paths in life, but all share a strong familial bond rooted in their parents' enduring marriage. Over the years, Barry has embraced his role as a father and grandfather with warmth and devotion. And today, he has 7 grandchildren who bring him continued joy and purpose in his later years. Despite the demands of fame and a lifetime spent in the spotlight, Barry Gibb has always placed great importance on his family and personal relationships. In addition to his family commitments, Barry has maintained strong ties to both his homeland and his adopted country. Originally from the Isle of Man and raised in Manchester, England, Barry Gibb relocated to the United States in 1974 at the height of the Bee Gees' fame, and he has lived primarily there ever since. He and his wife, Linda, became naturalized citizens of the United States in 2009, a milestone that reflected their deep connection to their life in America. However, they chose to retain their British citizenship as well, embracing their dual identities and honoring their heritage. Although Gibb spends most of his time in the US, he still owns property in the UK, a country he remains emotionally connected to and frequently visits. One of the most notable aspects of Gibb's residence in the US was his purchase of a legendary property with deep musical roots. In January 2006, Gibb and his wife acquired the former home of country music legends Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, located in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Gibb had long admired Johnny Cash and envisioned transforming the historic property into a creative retreat and songwriting haven for artists, a place where musical legacies could be honored and new ones born. Unfortunately, tragedy struck when the house caught fire on the 10th of April 2007 during renovation efforts. The blaze, which was believed to have started accidentally, completely destroyed the home and brought a heartbreaking end to Gibb's plans for the retreat. Undeterred, a new house was eventually constructed on the site, but the magic and history of the original home were irreplaceable. In 2014, Gibb and his family made the decision to sell the property, closing that chapter with grace and appreciation for the memories it held. Through all these personal events, marriages, parenthood, relocations, and property ventures, Barry Gibb has remained grounded in his values of love, loyalty, and creativity. His enduring relationship with Linda Gray is widely regarded as one of the most successful and steadfast in the entertainment industry, and his devotion to family continues to define his legacy as much as his musical achievements. Now in his late 70s, Barry Gibb, the last surviving member of the legendary Bee Gees, has begun to reflect more openly and candidly about the people, moments, and relationships that helped shape his life and career. One of the most intriguing and long-speculated aspects of Gibb's past has been his private thoughts and interactions with members of the Beatles, especially the enigmatic and iconic John Lennon. For decades, fans and music historians have wondered about the true nature of the relationship between the Bee Gees and the Beatles. Though both groups dominated the music world during overlapping eras, their musical paths and public personas seem to exist in different orbits. But now, after years of respectful silence, Barry Gibb has finally chosen to speak honestly about his personal impressions of John Lennon, a man who shaped the 1960s cultural revolution as much as anyone else in history. Barry revealed that his admiration for John Lennon began long before they ever met in person. As a teenager in the early 1960s, Barry, along with his younger brothers Robin and Maurice, was deeply influenced by the raw energy and revolutionary sound of the Beatles. Gibb described the experience of hearing Please Me and She Loves You for the first time as nothing short of electrifying. It wasn't just the melodies or the harmonies that captivated him. It was the attitude, the honesty, and the fearless innovation that Lennon embodied. Barry confessed that Lennon represented something more than just a rock star to him. He was a symbol of artistic freedom and social transformation. Despite their musical fame, the Bee Gees initially remained somewhat in awe of the Beatles. Barry recounted his nervousness during the first time he crossed paths with Lennon at a music industry party in London during the late 1960s. According to Gibb, Lennon walked into the room with a magnetic aura that made everyone take notice. But what stood out to Barry wasn't just Lennon's presence. It was his piercing intellect and surprisingly tender, disarming humor. In private, Lennon could be warm and deeply thoughtful, even as his public image remained one of biting wit and defiance. Barry remembered how Lennon complimented the Bee Gees on their vocal blend, calling it beautifully strange, a comment that stayed with Barry for decades. Over the years, as the Bee Gees' fame skyrocketed in the 1970s with the release of Saturday Night Fever and their disco dominance, Gibb said he often wondered what Lennon really thought of their transformation. While some critics dismissed disco as a commercial fad, Barry always suspected that Lennon, a fellow boundary breaker, respected their ability to evolve and innovate. Gibb admitted he never got to ask Lennon directly, but in later interviews with Lennon's associates, he learned that John had privately admired the Bee Gees' songwriting, particularly their ability to craft hits that connected so powerfully with audiences. Yet, Gibb also acknowledged the complicated emotional dynamic between the two groups. In public, John Lennon could be cutting, and he once made dismissive comments about the Bee Gees in a radio interview which stung Barry deeply. However, Barry now views those remarks through the lens of time and maturity. He recognizes that Lennon was often fighting his own internal battles and used sarcasm and irony as shields. John had his demons, Barry said, and I think he sometimes pushed people away before they could get too close. Far from holding a grudge, Barry expressed a deep sympathy for Lennon's struggles with fame, identity, and personal pain. Perhaps the most poignant revelation Barry shared was about the moment he learned of John Lennon's tragic death in December 1980. Gibb recalled being in a studio in Miami when the news broke. It felt like the world just stopped, he said. It was as if a part of the sky had fallen. For Barry, Lennon's murder was not just the loss of a peer. It was the loss of a cultural titan whose voice had given hope, challenged authority, and brought meaning to an entire generation. Barry admitted he cried that night, grieving not only for Lennon's family, but for the millions of people who had looked to him as a voice of truth in a chaotic world. Now, decades later, Barry Gibb is no longer interested in hiding behind the guarded politeness that often defines celebrity recollections. At 78, with a lifetime of music and memories behind him, he speaks of Lennon not as a mythic figure, but as a man, flawed, brilliant, brave, and heartbreakingly human. I think John Lennon was one of the greatest minds of our time, Barry said. And I'm grateful that even in small ways our lives crossed paths. He challenged us all to think more, to feel more, and to never stop asking questions. And perhaps most touching is Barry's acknowledgement of how Lennon's brutal honesty inspired him to push the Bee Gees in new directions. After talking with John, I stopped trying to please everyone. I realized that the music had to be real. It had to mean something to me first. In finally telling the truth about John Lennon, Barry Gibb has offered not just a tribute, but a rare glimpse into a private reverence. One artist honoring another with honesty, vulnerability, and the kind of wisdom that only time can bring.